The restaurant's soft amber lighting bathed the corner table in a warm, intimate glow, turning the ordinary into something almost sacred. Alexander Reed, 45 years old, tanned skin carrying the faint bronze of frequent coastal retreats, sat with the easy posture of a man accustomed to commanding rooms. His navy bespoke suit, cut sharp yet understated, hugged broad shoulders, the silver tie loosened by a single finger in a rare concession to nerves. Across from him sat Mia, 36, caramel skin luminous under the candles, dark curls swept into an elegant low chignon, black cocktail dress simple but perfectly fitted, a delicate silver pendant resting against her collarbone. She had been charming, witty, easy to talk to, exactly the kind of normal, blind date his sister-in-law had insisted he try after years of polite refusals. Then, without warning, Mia rose smoothly, eyes flicking toward the entrance. "That's my sister walking in now," she said, voice low but clear, each word landing like a stone in still water. "Lila. The woman you were going to marry 10 years ago. The one everyone, including you, believed drowned in that storm. She survived, Alexander. She's been alive the entire time. And tonight we're finally going to tell you why she disappeared." The room seemed to contract. Alexander's heartbeat became a violent drum in his ears, drowning the murmur of other diners, the distant clink of crystal. His fingers went numb around the stem of his wineglass, he set it down before it could fall. 10 years. 10 years of carrying her ghost in every quiet moment, searching wreckage reports until his eyes burned, standing on the same rocky shore each anniversary with a single white rose, building a billion-dollar empire brick by brick to bury the grief. If this was real and he let fear, pride, or whatever lingering danger still stalked them drive her away again, he would lose her a second time. Irrevocably. The only woman who had ever made him feel truly seen, truly alive, would slip through his fingers forever. How had she survived the impossible? Why had she chosen silence over him? What darkness had forced her to let the world, and the man who loved her, mourn her as dead? Lila approached. The resemblance was staggering, same high cheekbones, same wide hazel eyes fringed with thick lashes, same cascade of dark curls that used to smell of salt and jasmine after a day on the water. Yet time had left its gentle marks, faint laugh lines at the corners of her eyes, a quiet gravity in her posture that spoke of years survived rather than merely lived. She wore an identical black dress to her twins, but where Mia's pendant was silver, Lila's earrings were fine gold filigree that swayed softly with each step. She stopped beside the table, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles paled. "Alex," she breathed, the single syllable trembling. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to suffer. I thought staying gone was the only way to keep you safe." He stood so fast the chair scraped backward. His hands reached for hers on instinct, cool fingers, slender, familiar. The moment their skin met, heat rushed through him like a circuit completing after a decade of darkness. Tears, hot, unwelcome, unstoppable, pricked his eyes. "You're alive," he whispered, voice cracking on the last word. "You're really here." They sank into their seats. The waiter hovered, read the atmosphere, and vanished. For long minutes no one spoke. Alexander couldn't stop touching her, tracing the inside of her wrist where her pulse fluttered like a trapped bird, brushing a stray curl from her cheek, memorizing the warmth that proved this wasn't another cruel dream. Lila let him, tears sliding silently down her own face, darkening the linen napkin she clutched. Mia spoke first, voice soft but steady. The storm tore her from the deck. She was knocked unconscious, carried by currents for hours. A fishing boat found her at dawn, hypothermic, skull fractured, no memory of who she was. They took her to a tiny clinic on one of the smaller Azores Islands. No passport, no phone, nothing to connect her to the headlines screaming, "Billionaire's fiancé lost at sea." When fragments of memory returned weeks later, she saw the news footage. Your face on every screen. The world had already buried her. And she learned something far worse: the accident wasn't an accident. Lila took a shaky breath. Someone sabotaged the yacht. Fuel lines severed cleanly, professional work. I tracked down the mechanic years later. He'd been paid a fortune to vanish after he started talking. Your push into next-generation renewables was about to collapse billion-dollar oil interests. They didn't want to kill you outright, that would have drawn too much scrutiny. They wanted to shatter you. Make you sell, retreat, disappear into grief. They almost succeeded. Alexander's jaw locked so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. He had suspected foul play from the beginning. Investigators had called it paranoia, grief talking. Hearing her voice, the truth felt like a blade sliding between old ribs. I should have pushed harder, he rasped. I should have torn the world apart looking for answers. You couldn't have known, Lila said gently. And even if you had, they would have come for you next. I couldn't bear that. So I chose silence. I took a new name, Elena Marquez. I learned Portuguese. I painted on the beach every morning. I taught art to village children in the afternoons. And every single day I ached for you. Mia leaned forward, eyes glistening. I found her 4 years ago. I'd never stopped searching, quietly, privately. When I finally stood on her porch in that little whitewashed house overlooking the Atlantic, she tried to send me away. It took months of letters, calls, visits before she admitted she still loved you. Before she agreed this blind date setup was the safest way to come back, anonymous at first, then the truth when the moment felt right. Lila reached into her small clutch and withdrew a thick, worn envelope. I wrote to you, she said. Almost every week for 10 years. I never sent them. They're all in a box under my bed back home. This one, she pressed it into his palm. I wrote the night I decided to return. Read it when you're alone. He closed his fingers around it like a vow, slipped it inside his jacket pocket over his heart. The restaurant slowly emptied. Lights dimmed in distant corners, but their table remained an island of candlelight and quiet intensity. They talked, haltingly at first, then in rushing currents. Alexander described the hollow decade, boardrooms where million-dollar decisions felt meaningless, nights pacing marble floors replaying their last morning together, a silly argument about whether to sail south or east next season, the way he kept her favorite scarf locked in his office safe because it still held the ghost of her scent. Lila spoke of her parallel life, the garden she planted with herbs and bright flowers so she could pretend they were growing on the terrace of the house they once dreamed of buying together, the children who called her Professora Elena, and whose laughter sometimes eased the ache, the ritual of walking to the cliffs at dawn each anniversary to scatter white petals into the sea while she whispered apologies and love into the wind. Mia added small, tender details, how she had cried alone in rental cars after every visit, how she had memorized flight paths and ferry schedules just to be near her sister without raising suspicion. As the clock pushed past midnight, Mia rose quietly. "I'll leave you too," she said. She hugged Lila so tightly their curls mingled, then turned to Alexander. "She came back because she believes in you, in what you could still have. Don't waste it on fear." She kissed his cheek, whispered, "Thank you for never forgetting her," and slipped out into the night. Alexander and Lila moved to the secluded terrace. Rain had begun, soft, steady, scenting the air with wet stone and distant sea. City lights blurred into golden rivers below them. He drew her against his chest, she rested her ear over his heart, listening to the rhythm she had dreamed of for a decade. "I don't know how to begin again," he admitted, voice rough. "But I know I can't let you walk away." "Then don't," she murmured. "We start small. Coffee tomorrow. A walk. Talking. Just, staying in the same room. We have time now." They stayed until the rain soaked through their clothes, until the city quieted to a hush. He drove her to his penthouse, not with expectation, but with the simple need to keep her near. Inside, he lit the fireplace while she wandered the vast space, fingertips brushing spines of books, pausing at the framed photograph on his desk, the two of them on the old sailboat, wind-tangled hair, wide smiles, the future still wide open. "You kept this out," she said, voice thick. "Every day," he answered simply. They settled on the thick rug before the fire, blanket pulled over their legs, shoulders touching. They talked until dawn crept in, about the fears that had rooted in the silence, the dreams they had buried, the small, stubborn joys each had clung to like lifelines. When exhaustion finally won, he wrapped his arms around her. She curled against him, head on his chest, and fell asleep to the steady beat of his heart, the most beautiful sound she had heard in 10 years. Morning light spilled across the terrace. They woke slowly, shy smiles breaking through sleepy eyes. Over coffee and fresh fruit in the golden sun, they began to sketch tentative plans: therapy together, discreet investigators to reopen the cold case, a quiet weekend somewhere the world couldn't find them. Then her phone vibrated on the glass table. Unknown number. She answered, listened for less than 20 seconds. Color drained from her face. "They know," she whispered, setting the phone down with shaking hands. A man's voice. "Tell Reed the debt isn't paid. We're watching both of you now." Cold slid through Alexander's veins like mercury. The past hadn't finished with them. He took her hands, held her gaze. "We face it. Together. No more hiding. No more running." She searched his face, fear warring with resolve, then nodded. Together. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of courage and caution. Private security moved like shadows around them. Investigators dug through sealed files, traced long-buried wire transfers, named men who had once believed themselves untouchable. Alexander wielded his influence like a scalpel, not for vengeance, but for protection. Court documents piled up, depositions stretched into early mornings, strategy sessions filled the penthouse with tense voices and strong coffee. Through it all their connection deepened. New habits took root: dawn coffee on the terrace as the city stirred below, evening walks along the river path with fingers laced, small notes left on pillows when nightmares woke one or the other: "I'm here. You're safe. I love you." They laughed again, tentative at first, then freer. They cried together when memories surged unexpectedly. They healed, inch by stubborn inch. One crisp October evening, after a particularly draining day of legal confrontations, Alexander led her to the rooftop garden he had planted in secret months earlier. Jasmine climbed trellises in thick ropes, pale blue flowers nodded in the breeze like tiny waves. He took both her hands, looked into the eyes that had once been the center of his world and now were again. "I loved you then with everything I was," he said, voice low and sure. "I love you now, deeper, because I know the cost of losing you. I know what it means to wake up without you and still choose to keep breathing. Marry me, Lila. Not to erase what happened, but to fill every remaining day with us." Tears spilled as she laughed through them, bright and broken and beautiful. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Alex. Yes." They kissed beneath a sky thick with stars, jasmine scent wrapping them like a vow renewed. Mia arrived the next weekend, arms full of white roses and champagne, grin wide enough to light the room. They celebrated quietly, laughter, stories, toasts to survival and second chances, beginning to weave the family none of them had dared hope for. In time the evidence became ironclad. Arrests came swiftly and silently. Old enemies chose plea deals over trials. The shadows receded. Alexander stepped away from the relentless pace of empire building, delegating to people he trusted, choosing presence over power. Lila opened a small gallery near the water, her paintings, seascapes filled with light, hidden hope, quiet redemption, drew collectors and critics alike. They traveled together, hidden coves in Greece where they swam at dawn, mountain cabins in Tuscany where they read aloud by firelight, quiet places where no one knew their names or their history. They held each other through lingering echoes of fear, celebrated small triumphs, learned, slowly, patiently, to forgive themselves for the years lost. Years later, on the exact date of that fateful blind date, they returned to the restaurant. Same corner table. Same flickering candles. Mia joined them, now married, her young son perched on her lap calling Alexander Uncle Alex and Lila Auntie Lee with gleeful abandon. Dessert arrived, chocolate torte they barely touched. Alexander raised his glass. To the storm that tried to take you from me, he said, voice thick, and to the love that was stronger. Lila touched her glass to his. To never giving up. Mia smiled through shining eyes. To the family we almost lost, and the one we'll keep building forever. Glasses clinked. Laughter mingled with quiet, happy tears. The past had become foundation stones, not chains. They had discovered the deepest truth: love does not die in darkness. It endures. It waits. It fights through years, through silence, through fear. And when it finds its way home, scarred, wiser, more fierce than before, it burns brighter than it ever could have without the breaking. If this story reached into your chest and stirred something, hope, ache, belief that second chances are real and love can outlast almost anything, hit like and subscribe for more stories of hearts that refuse to stay broken.